Okay, we're now live. Everything's live. We're on YouTube and we're recording another way too. So if you notice, the first committee I have up is Public Works. So Mr. Watkins, if you're okay with starting, I will start with the manager's update for Public Works.
Let's start.
Okay, everybody did get the handouts, I assume, in the email, by the way. If you didn't, I sent them out this afternoon, so hopefully you got them. I only have one item, and I just want to take a minute to explain what this is again. I told you last month that Three Rivers Wet Weather helps communities who are Alcoasand communities with this sanitary sewer issue and to an extent stormwater issues as well. And they give us usually a monthly update. Now, the update they gave us here is not real clear, because you probably would have had to have looked at the consent order that was signed by us and other communities to understand what they mean when he's talking about Exhibit B and Section 6B and stuff like that. I don't know if everybody got the consent order to look at, or if you really want to see it. It's a long document, but I can get it to you if you want to see it. Usually what they try to do is explain what they're doing for each of the different sewer systems. And there are three. There are the separate sewer systems, which we are, SSS. There are combined sewer overflow or sewer systems, which are CSOs. And then there are mixed, which are a combination of both. So I just showed you the information they had about the consent order stuff from separate systems. And again, the reason why I show this here, and I also stick it onto the agenda every month, is because we're supposed to continuously update people on what's happening. It's part of the education process, and we sign off on consent orders saying that we will make sure people are educated about this. So that's one reason why you'll see some repeat articles in the Tree City Times that you may have seen before, and why you'll see this on the agendas at various times. One last thing I want to say, and then I'll just see if you have any questions, is that one of the things that came out recently, and Dave's going to talk about this a little bit later when he gets to his report, is whether or not we need to have an ordinance that requires people to have their lateral TV'd. And the lateral, of course, is owned by the property owner, not by the borough. It connects your property to the sewer system, the borough sewer system. And if you recall, about 2 or 3 years ago when this first came up, I put an article in the Tree City Times, and I think we repeated that several times. I'm probably going to repeat it again, because it's going to be a surprise to people, I think, even if they read that article, when they find out that they're going to have to do one of two things. Either it's going to be mandated that whenever they sell their property, they have to get the sewer lateral inspected, or worse, it's going to be mandated they have to get the sewer lateral inspected right now at their own expense. And they're not going to be happy about that. I'm not sure how it will go, but one of the issues right now is whether or not we need an ordinance to mandate one or another way of inspecting it. Right now, and I think Dave will talk about this later, he's going to tell you they're not recommending an ordinance at this time. So, but I'll let him talk about it during engineer's report later. Other than that, do you have any questions for me? That's the only item I have under manager's update. And if you don't, I'll stop and let Mr. Watkins.
I have a quick comment to the new people. Sewer is a big part of our, like, so all those updates, like the government mandated, we have to do it, and it's a big part of our sewage bill. So our taxpayers pay, it's a big chunk of our sewage bill is going into that kind of stuff. So it's taxpayer paid for, basically. Why we need to update them. It's a big chunk.
Right. Frank, did you want to say something?
So I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that I have my arms wrapped around this. Timing of this, Steve, is when?
As far as an ordinance is concerned, Steve Corbel says we don't need it right away, and both he and Dave Gillen said it's nothing needed now. There are other things that we can do to mitigate, although that might be something that's going to be required down the road. I don't have a time period. Dave, are you still on here? Maybe he got off temporarily. I don't see him on right now, but I know he has.
I see him on. I just don't know. Oh, there he is.
Dave, do you know, is there any time frame on when we might have to do something with laterals?
Yes, there is. 2026 is the estimated time frame for when the sewer lateral inspection ordinance would be required for all municipalities. Right now, it is not required. For you, it is one of several options. I'm sorry, I'm getting in from my previous meeting, just getting in the door. It's one of several options. If you want to talk about that now, I can go over it now.
Mr. Watkins, it's up to you.
Let's go over it now. There's some important details in this.
Okay. So upon the latest, under the latest consent decree, the borough has certain requirements. One option of the phase 2 consent order is to adopt a lateral time of sale ordinance. Other options include flow reduction projects to reduce infiltration and inflow to the gold line standard or below. Since administration of the ordinance is quite extensive for municipalities with a large number of home sales, like Forest Hills, we recommend that you do not adopt the ordinance at this time. It will likely be a requirement of the phase 3 orders, which will likely not be in effect until 2026 or after. Since the borough is at or below the gold line standard currently, we recommend investigating a project to reduce inflow and infiltration by 10% or more over the next 5 years instead of the lateral inspection ordinance. And we will get back to you with those recommendations at a later meeting.
So can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
Sorry, Cecil, I'm not trying to commandeer the meeting. I'm just asking some questions that I think all of
Questions are welcome.
Okay, great. So if I'm hearing you correctly, David, what you're saying is that we're not going to be mandated to adopt this ordinance until 2026. If we're able to take steps to reduce the inflow into our own system by 10%, does that then negate the requirement to adopt this ordinance, or do we have to do it regardless?
We will likely, that will come out in the phase 3 orders, which won't come out until 2026. So at this time, if we do the project to reduce the inflow, we would not be required to do it up until 2026. And we won't know for sure until 2026 when that other order, when a phase 3 order comes out, whether for sure we will have to do it at that time.
So if I can make a suggestion to the committee, and maybe council needs to just kick this around a little bit. We have some time, but where we kind of get into trouble, not trouble, but where we kind of misstep at times is that, these ordinances get adopted ultimately, and then the residents say, well, this is new and I had no idea, right? Even though we're talking about it 4 years earlier. So we've got to maybe figure out we've put an article, I believe, out in Tree City Times already, but if you're like me, you read the article, you file it away and you don't remember it, right? I mean, or after a year, you'll forget that you even read the article. So maybe it's some sort of a drip campaign. Maybe it's some sort of, let's leverage our new communication tool to get that information out there. Maybe it's a formal letter. Maybe it's a combination of things. I'm throwing out some options. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's got to come out of committee what next steps might be. Just some thoughts. Sorry.
So can I do a comment?
Sure.
I think actually, if it's mandatory for every household to do it, we should maybe look into it, or we have time to do like some contract, some outside company who will do it for us and maybe roll it into the sewage bills. Like pretty much if it's mandated anyway, I think we should do it for everyone and just charge them the money via the sewage bill. Just an idea to think about it. Because I think, like Frank said, we don't want to surprise people, but if we roll it over into the sewage bill, I mean, it's automatic then for people. They don't have to worry about it. But it's something we can think about it.
Well, at this time, it wouldn't be for everyone.
Or just if you sell a house. Okay.
It would just be if you sell the house, and it would be on the seller. Usually the seller of the house has to pay for that inspection.
Right.
So I don't know that we would want to have a contract.
No. I totally agree. I thought it was like either the seller or maybe mandatory for everyone. Yeah.
I don't think mandatory for everyone is going to be in the order. It's going to be a time of sales, from what I understand.
Do you
Right.
have an estimate on what this fee, what it would cost to have this inspection done?
I do not. I know that there would be two fees. There would be a fee you would have to pay the plumber to do the inspection. They actually shove a lateral camera through the lateral to inspect the full length of it. It may vary depending on how long your lateral is. If you're in an area of the avenues, say, for example, where the laterals are shorter versus, say, Glasgow Drive or somewhere like that, where the lateral might be longer, the price might be different. It's probably at least $1,000 or maybe $2,000. Then there's going to be a cost that the borough is going to have to charge for administration of this, because the inspection has to be recorded on a flash drive, which is then given to someone who is certified to review these. It can't just be anyone. It has to be someone that's certified to review the lateral inspections. We do have at least one or two members of our staff at Glenn Engineering that are certified. And of course, we would have a fee for that. And then there's the follow-up. If there is a problem with the lateral, it may have to be re-inspected. If there is, say, roots in it, or if it's broken or cracked or something that doesn't pass inspection, then it would have to be repaired and then re-inspected. So the cost could escalate depending on what was found.
And if something is found, they'd also have to do the repairs.
That's correct. They have to do the
So
repairs and
this could
have it
escalate dramatically.
Yes, and then they'd have to have it re-inspected and reviewed by our office to make sure that it passed. And there is, like, with the number of sales that you have in Forest Hills, it would be some additional administrative time for someone in the borough. I don't know who that would fall on to do that, whether it be your building inspector or another employee, maybe code enforcement or someone else, to like administer the paperwork, so to speak, on this.
So any idea what this would cost with the borough to have them complete their portion of this task?
I could check with, there are several of our clients that currently have this ordinance. I know East McKeesport has it. I'm not sure what other towns, so I know they do. I could check with them and see what their administrative fee is for the review, and the borough's part of it. And I could see if they have an idea of what the plumbers are charging for this. Because it would be a plumber that would be contracted by the seller to do this. And all plumbing companies do it. I mean, most plumbing companies have lateral cameras now.
Would it have to be a plumber, or could we get, say, a certified home inspector? I know a
No,
lot of them
Has
have
to be a
sewer
registered
cams.
plumber. Has to be a
registered plumber.
Yes, has to be a registered plumber.
Okay,
Yeah, we've had that problem before with some of the people doing dye tests where they would get somebody who wasn't registered and they'd have to redo it.
yeah.
Correct.
Well, that's an important part of the education process, that people have to know that it's got to be a registered plumber so that we don't repeat that mistake again.
Correct.
I don't know if there's still two hands up, Mr. Bioki and Mayor Porco. I don't know if you still need to say something.
Yeah,
We're still under my report, so.
yeah, I wanted to just add another question here. So this has to be done now, correct, for people that are selling their homes?
No,
It doesn't?
no, it does not. It's not a borough ordinance currently, and we're recommending that Forest Hills Borough does not adopt this ordinance at this time. There are other ways to comply with the consent decree under phase 2, rather than have this ordinance at this time.
Okay, thank you.
If nobody has anything else for me, that's all I have as a report, Mr. Watkins. So I'm finished with my report for Public Works.
This is my first meeting, so Frank or Steve, should I just proceed through the rest of the report?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Give me a second to flip over to that. I'm doing all of this on my device. First up is the MS4 detention pond project.
Well,
Um,
first up would be my report, and that's my
okay, I'll
first.
start. Excuse me, engineer's report.
Thank you.
Informative. All right.
So the first item is the MS4 detention pond. This item has been on the agenda for quite a while. It's a project that is required. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. This is different than the sanitary sewer part, which is the consent decree. This is strictly storm sewers, and there are requirements under the latest MS4 permit that the borough has to comply with to meet the requirements of the law. The requirement that we are under right now for Forest Hills and for Fall Run, which is our tributary for our storm sewers, is to reduce the amount of sediment that goes into that stream from the borough's storm sewers. The way that we at the borough had decided to comply with that was to modify the pond. There is a pond behind the park and ride lot on Avenue B. If we modify that pond and make it into a pond that traps sediment, is the best way to describe it in layman's terms. There's a forebay and then there's the pond. It's just reconstructing the pond is basically what it is. That will capture sediment and allow it to prevent it from entering Fall Run and eventually Turtle Creek. So that would put us in compliance. And we did get a permit, or I'm sorry, we did not get the permit yet. We did get a grant for this project for about, I think it's $150,000. I don't have the amount in front of me. It has not been bid yet. We have to get the DEP permit first. That has been applied for. DEP was always a slow permit to get. It's gotten slower since they were working remotely, and I'm not sure if they had gone back to the offices, but they may be back remote again. But we have not gotten approval of the permit. Once we get that, it will be put out to bid. We will know the exact cost. But we do have that grant in place to pay for the lion's share of the project. Are there any questions on that? If not, I'll move on. Fall Run Interceptor project. To give you some background, the Fall Run Interceptor is a sanitary sewer that runs from Turtle Creek, the body of water, not the town, through 7 boroughs: East Pittsburgh, North Braddock, Chalfont, Forest Hills. Braddock Hills contributes to it. Churchill contributes to it, and a very small portion of Wilkinsburg contributes to the sewer. So there is a joint that the Alcosan has agreed to take over ownership and maintenance of this sewer pipe, since it is intermunicipal. It serves more than one town. The requirement that they have is that the pipe, they inspected it and they want the pipe in tip-top shape and repaired. And there are about 20 or so locations where the pipe needs repaired before they will take it over. So there was an agreement drawn up between the 7 towns. Forest Hills took the lead, since we have the largest share of users for the pipe and the largest share financially for the repairs. There was a system put into place whereby dividing the cost for the project between the towns. It was put out to bid. The bids were awarded, I believe, in either November, I think it was November of last year, by Forest Hills Council. As I said, Forest Hills took the lead. We have a pre-construction meeting scheduled with the contractor on February 3rd, and they anticipate starting work April 1st. It had been sooner than that, but delays on a previous job have pushed that back to April 1st. So we'll continue to update you on the progress of that program. The third item, if you have any questions as I go along, please feel free to interrupt me. The 2022 paving project, the list of streets was approved at the January council meeting and will be advertised once the snow melts and we can examine the pavement to prepare specifications. We hadn't gotten out and done our field work yet before snow covered most of the streets. And we want to see everything on the streets before we put it out to bid, so we don't miss anything that's covered with snow. Hopefully that'll be done possibly this week or next week. And we can get that advertised. We may have bids for you at your March council meeting. Number 4, we already talked about. Number 5, PennDOT, as you may know, is going to be replacing 3 culverts under Ardmore Boulevard this summer, or this spring, actually. And the borough has received public notification that People's Gas will be relocating a gas line within the culvert project area. There is a form that the gas company sent, which includes a land use questionnaire that's required by DEP as part of the permitting for the relocation in the stream area. And it's just verifying that the land in question is zoned for utility lines, and it is the right of way of Ardmore Boulevard. So of course it is, but we still have to fill out the questionnaire. It's 2 pages, and we just wanted approval of the committee before we filled out this questionnaire on behalf of the borough.
May I ask a question, Dave?
Sure.
I know we don't have a firm date yet for the timing of the work on the culverts,
That's
But-
correct.
and they're doing 3 separate ones. So
Yes.
is the idea to go intent to start one, because I realize there's going to be road closures for each one, then finish that, and then go on to the next one? Would you imagine that's the,
I believe the way it was presented at the last meeting I had with PennDOT was that 2 of them were close enough together. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing similar to what was done when the bridge over Electric Avenue was replaced years ago by Vincent's Pizza. They will be taking out the median, shifting traffic to all one side. So it'll be 1 lane in each direction on one side while they're working on the other side, and then they'll shift it back. 2 of the culverts are close enough together that they are going to do that lane shift at one time. So, for example, the one is near the Presbyterian Church and the other is near the soccer field of the park. I think those are the 2 that they're going to switch first, and they will switch all the traffic to one side for both of those at one time. Then complete, say, the westbound lanes, and then they'll shift everything to the eastbound lanes and do work on that. Then after that is completed, they will do the same thing on the one that is located near Roman Bistro and the old Burr building, and switch the lanes there. But I think to minimize the traffic interruptions, they were going to only do 2 shifts for each one, for the total of 3 culverts. They're going to do 2 at the same time.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that? Okay, the final item I have, Jim Thielacker and I were talking, and what we found is that in recent years, whenever a utility company digs up a street, they only are required to repair half of the street, 1 lane. For example, last year on Lennox, the gas company ran a new line up Lennox, but only paved half the street. And then there was a portion where they didn't do in the middle, and they didn't do any paving. It kind of was going to create a patchwork on the street. The borough did step in and pave the remaining part under a separate contract because the gas company already had a contract to do theirs, and their unit prices were a lot more than what the borough was paying for asphalt. But it kind of gave a patchwork effect to the paving on Lennox. And because of that, and to prevent that in the future, what we're recommending is that the borough adopt an ordinance, which many towns have already adopted, and PennDOT already has in place, whereas when you dig up a road, you are required to pave curb to curb, mill and pave curb to curb in the work area, not just half the street. It comes out a lot nicer. It ends up with a cleaner job and less opportunity for water to infiltrate seams where paving joints are, and makes for a longer lasting pavement. We spend a lot of money on paving every year, and we although we do notify water and gas company before of our list of streets and give them the opportunity to replace anything before we pave, it seems that there's always problems afterwards and they end up digging it up. So this would make for a better repair and allow for full width paving rather than only half width when there is a utility opening in the street. And I did send some sample ordinances out with my report, and I also copied Steve Corbel on it. He's probably familiar with this concept. A lot of towns, like I said, have already adopted it. But it's a recommendation that Jim Thielacker and I have come up with, and we feel that it would make our streets last longer and protect the investment that the borough spends every year for paving. So that's for the committee's consideration. If the committee is in favor of that, the next step would be you might want to bring it up at committee of the whole when Steve Corbell's here. If it's council's desire to pursue this, then you could direct Solicitor Corbell to prepare an ordinance in association with us to enact these regulations. That's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. I just had one question. I want to circle back to the paving of the streets. I
Yes,
believe there's the street that goes behind Roman Bistro. Is that Barclay?
yes,
Okay, I
Berkeley.
know that's an ongoing project.
yes.
Any idea when that will formally be paved?
The gas company is currently working there, or going to be working there, in the concrete portion of the street, right near the restaurant. Jim and I are going to meet with the gas company before they work and see what they're going to repair and what they're not. We initially had paved that street. Berkeley goes into Lee, and I think it's Cedar. I'm not 100% sure. There's another street. There's only 3 streets up there. We had done the top
Yeah.
2. We were working our way out. We started at the top at Lee, came down at Lee, and I believe Cedar last year. And we're intending to do Berkeley this year. But with the impending gas company work, plus that culvert that's going to be at the bottom, we didn't want to pave it and then have it torn up by construction. So that was deferred until next year. But we are going to meet with the gas company and get whatever we can out of them repaired this year while they do their work there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
That's it. I would like to make a comment. Did you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. About that street opening ordinance, I would highly recommend that we move that to committee of the whole to get Steve Corbell's input. And I actually think ultimately we should go ahead. Give you a bit of history. We used to have an ordinance where we just said, okay, if they dig a 1 foot wide hole, we just need to fix that. And we went from a patch to half the street. If now other towns get away with forcing utilities to pay for the whole width of the street, I think we should do that because like Jimmy and Dave said, I think it makes sense. It's just a better quality job. So I would like to move that to the committee of the whole.
Okay,
This is-
we'll try. Go ahead.
This is Jack. I just wanted to suggest the same thing. Let's push it out. I think that's a pretty significant suggestion, and we should push it to Cal and take action on that. Thank you.
Certainly. So if there, I'm sorry, guys, I just closed down the screen that had the agenda on it. Steve, can you help me move this forward?
Yeah, if the foreman's report would be next, Mr. Watkins. So nobody has any more questions for Dave, you would go to Jim Thielacker for foreman report.
All right. So, Mr. Thielacker, can you give your foreman's report at this time?
Yes, I have the work planned out for the month of February there. I'm not going to read everything. If you guys want to just look it over, you folks, and if you have any questions, please bring it up. That's all I really have.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Watkins, that's all that really is on Public Works right now, if you don't have your agenda up in front of you. There was no other reports that were given to me.
All right. I'm trying to do all this on a single device and the screen just closed down. But thank you very much, Steve. If there's nothing else, then we'll conclude the report from Public Works.
Okay, I need a couple of seconds to switch over to Borough Property. So just hang on for about 20 seconds at the most, I hope.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Martin, I'm good for Borough Property. If you're okay, I can start with the manager's update, if you're all right with that.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, I have two items. Whoops, that's my wrong agenda here. I have two items. First is bid specifications. I'm a little behind on just about everything I'm doing right now, so you're gonna have to bear with me. There are two bid specs that we're working on. One that's I'm just peripherally involved with, and the other one that I'm more involved with. That's the first one is the Centennial Clock. The mayor and I talked about it, and as you may remember at the meeting in January, I believe you okayed going out to bid for that Centennial Clock. So we talked about the specifications, and we're trying to put down several alternatives, and I'm still working on that. I'm sorry, but it's going to take me a while. I'm trying to get it done so that it's finished before the end of the month, and we can get it out because the grant we have is up at the end of June. But I'm like juggling about 15 different things here right now, and I'm not getting any of them done very well. So, but I am trying to work on that. If you have any insights or anything, you all saw last month what the clocks examples look like, and you did recommend a two-faced clock initially, but after talking with the mayor, we decided to throw in some alternatives too, just because it doesn't hurt to get multiple bids. And we want the people to come out and take a look at the property here. Hopefully they'll be able to do that. I couldn't find any clock vendors that are local. There is one or two in Pennsylvania East, but most of the rest of them are elsewhere around the country that I've been able to find in searching. But of course, we'll advertise that and we'll put it on the various things that we have, you know, Twitter, et cetera, and whatever. And it'll be on our website, et cetera. I'm hopefully going to have that ready though, so that by the time we have the next meeting of this committee in March, it will be out. The second one is the energy services contract, and I'm working on that kind of peripherally, although that has taken up some time. Ms. DeMarco was going to report on that, but she's not available tonight. What she asked me to do was fill in some information. This was approved several meetings ago, I think, by council to go out. If you remember, we had Siemens here giving us a presentation. I think that was in December or November. I don't remember. You know, that's the problem with getting older. You know, it's all kind of merging. But anyway, so I know we talked about it sometime that I've been here. One of the 21 years I've been here, I know we discussed it. But in any case, she wants to get this out, and there are apparently some contractors. This is through a state recommended process. So there are some contractors that are part of this recommended process that she has that we can send this to. She sent me what may be a final draft later today. I didn't get a chance to look at it. It could go out as early as this week, although the way things are looking right now, I don't think so. I'm concerned about the weather coming up this week and whether we'll even be here, as well as just some other stuff I'm trying to finish. I know that she said that Ms. Martin may have more information on it. I don't know if you do, Barb, or not. Did she give you any more information on that energy services contract?
I really don't know much more than you, except that
Okay.
she wanted me to report that the agreement has been finalized. And if you recall, we all received a draft of this earlier last month. So I know we're all familiar with it. So that's really
Okay.
all I have to say.
Okay.
Mr. Oberdinger?
I talked to Steve Corbell about that, and he basically said it's kind of a new thing, but he knows of some school district doing it. So it's kind of like established thing in Pennsylvania. So it's not like we are the first ever doing that. And my second comment I have about the bid specifications, Steve, you're supposed to work on a third bid as well for the viewing platform at the bird sanctuary. There should be 3 bids you're working on, I think.
Oh, well, Dave Gillen's working on that.
Okay.
that'll come up here in his report in a few minutes. Okay. Yeah, these are the only two I'm actually myself doing the work on. So I'll fill you in more on that later. If you don't have any other questions about that, let me go to the second item I have, the Ryan Glen trees and Duquesne Light. And I'm going to share my screen here for a minute and show you photos because you can read the information on the notes. Hopefully, I don't think I'm sharing what I want to share. Wait a minute. Let me go back. And I hope this is going to let me share. You should be seeing a picture of Cascade Road and the end of Ryan Glen Park here at the curve where the Berlin and Cascade come together. Actually, is that Berlin? Now that I think about it, I may be wrong. But anyway, this is Ryan Glen Park behind the trees here. And you can see that there are new phone poles put in. I guess they're not really phone poles anymore. Electric poles put in here. Duquesne Light has been told by PennDOT that they have to remove some of their electric from the vicinity of Ryan Glen Park and Ardmore Boulevard because of the culvert work. And I'm not going to be able to go around to show you more than this front part of Ryan Glen. Back, let's see, back to the right side, back where this car is the stream that comes underneath Ardmore, Fall Run, and goes over toward Cascade. And that's the area where PennDOT is going to be digging up the far right of the park. For some reason, though, Duquesne Light has to reroute these lines around into Cascade Road in front of Ryan Glen and through these trees. So they are asking us they're asking to remove these trees. They really don't need to actually ask for permission. We've come up with this before with Duquesne Light where they can pretty much do what they need to do, but they're asking us if we're okay with removing the trees, otherwise just going to prune them. So Don Branzel has been working with them on this, and we had our Joe from Carl's, I forget Joe's last name, I'm sorry, from Carl's, who is acting as our arborist from time to time, to take a look at these trees that are right out here along Cascade Road. And he recommends that it probably makes more sense to remove them than to keep them there. Because he said if they're pruned, they're going to be pruned so badly, probably so severely, in other words, so much pruning that they're likely going to die down the road anyway. Duquesne Light says that they will install, they will give us vouchers for new trees to replace these. Don is also trying to get them to agree to remove the stumps if they do that, but neither Don nor I wanted to do this and say okay without bringing it up to you folks. I want to make sure you were aware of it because I know how sensitive that can be with trees in the borough. So I don't know if you have any comments or anything on that, but the trees that you saw there, those 4 trees across the front of the park are what they want to remove.
I have a comment, Steve.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Barb.
When I think if the trees are removed and then they grind the stumps out like we're hoping they do, rather than replace them with tall trees, I'm hoping to select native trees that don't grow so high and they're placed in an area where they won't interfere with utility lines. You know what I mean? More of like an ornamental thing, but just native trees because they just need less requirements and they're just great for the ecosystem. That's all I have to say.
Well, just to go back to a picture here that's attached to your agenda, that you can barely make it out, but there's a fence right along here. You can sort of see where I'm pointing to, I hope, with the arrow, the mouse. And Joe from Carl's actually recommended that if we're going to plant the trees, that it goes behind the fence rather than on this side. That would move them away from the wire. So they kind of agreed. And the other thing is, what they were telling us was they would give us a voucher. So it sounds like they would let us pick whatever trees we wanted to put in there. I don't think it's something that would require a certain kind of tree. So we probably can get that done that way. Again, I didn't want to just say, go ahead. I'm actually kind of surprised Duquesne Light didn't just come in and do it. They were already there. They gave us very little notice. And this is typical. I remember the first time when I first started, they were down on Cherry Valley, and I had people calling me, telling me to get down there and stop Duquesne Light and their contractor. And we did approach the PUC over these last few years, over a number of years. And the PUC says, hey, you know, it's Duquesne Light. If that's what they want to do, we're not going to stop them. We're not going to, you don't have much to say about it, is what we were told. So in any case, I'm surprised that they've gone this far with us. So I'm assuming that we really don't have much choice. But again, anybody else have any thoughts on that before I move on? Well, then we're going to, I guess, ask them to grind the stumps, go ahead with the voucher, let them go ahead and do what they're doing. They already have placed most of the lines there, as you can sort of see in the picture. If nobody has any comments or anything for me, that's the last item I have on my report. So I'm finished, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Could we have the engineer's report, please?
Thank you, ma'am. The first item I have is the pickleball court, as was reported in previous meetings. The line painting on the pickleball court will be done in the spring. There's been no change on that. The second item, we have a grant through a state program called Blight Remediation. It was a $19,800 grant. It was awarded in May of last year to demolish 21 Marion Avenue, which at the time was abandoned, but was up for sheriff's sale. It was purchased, and we believed that the new owner intended to rehabilitate the property and put it back on the tax rolls, bring it back up to code. Sorry, it's my dogs eating in the background. Hey. But it is now my understanding that Mr. Branzell, our code enforcement officer, has let me know that the new owner has indicated that he now believes that the property is not feasible to be repaired. He did do some exterior, I wouldn't call them repairs, just some things that were needed to be done to comply with the code. But he has indicated that it is not feasible to repair, and he is now agreeable to having it demolished. I know that we had talked about substituting other houses in the borough for this property, and we have not to date had any success in selecting a property to substitute for 21 Marion, but it seems to have come full circle and coming back around that 21 Marion may be the one that we need to do. So my recommendation is that we have the solicitor contact the property owner and confirm that they are indeed agreeable to demolition at this time. If he's not going to do anything with the property, we certainly don't want to let it sit and rot. It's at a very visible location. It's right behind the old municipal building. And that way we could remove it and prevent the propagation of blight in the borough. So that would be my recommendation, to have a solicitor corporal contact them and confirm if they're not going to renovate the property. Any questions on that? Not, I'll move on. The bird sanctuary observation deck proposals are out. We've sent them to 7 contractors. The proposals are due February 16th at the borough building and will be presented to council thereafter. I believe that's 1 week before your regular meeting. And finally, we set up requests for proposals for 5 contractors to do painting at the exterior of the Westinghouse Lodge. The proposals were received January 26th. Only one proposal was received, which was from Donald Hoover and Son from Chalfont for $25,710. There is a state law that says that anything over $21,900 needs to be a sealed bid and not just a request for proposals. So we cannot award for the full amount. We did follow up with Mr. Hoover and asked that he submit a follow-up quote deleting the cost of the paint, which could be bought by the borough directly. And that did lower his quote. We did receive a revised quote just this morning for $21,500. with the borough then having to purchase the paint before the job begins, which would be in April. The work is scheduled to be done over a 2-week period, I believe it, when Cindy said that there were no rentals scheduled for the lodge. It's my recommendation that council at the regular meeting this month award the project to Hoover and Sons for $21,500. And if you'd like, I can review what the items are that are going to be, the work items that are going to be done. Cleaning the vinyl, this is all exterior at the lodge. Cleaning the vinyl ceiling on the porch, treating the mold on the trim and wood panels, and pressure washing the brick. Painting the wood trim around the inner edge of the ceiling. Chaka. The light colored windows, the doors and panels, scraping loose paint, sanding the surface, caulking where needed, and applying 1 coat of mold killing primer and 1 coat of finish paint to the agreed upon premium exterior finish. Painting the steel ceiling beams. Those are rusting pretty badly right now. Scraping to remove loose paint and sand surface, applying 1 coat of oil-based metal primer and 1 coat of oil-based exterior premium finish. Painting the metal railings around the facility, sanding the surface to remove loose paint and contaminants, applying 1 coat of oil-based primer and 1 coat of oil-based exterior premium finish. Painting the brick that is already painted on the exterior of the building, applying 2 coats of premium waterproofing paint and applying paint to the roof peak windows. That would be just the window frames of where the roof peaks are on that building. And there's also an item in there to pressure wash the skylights in the porch, which are badly, there's a lot of bugs and bug droppings on them, so they need cleaned. That's the scope of the work. So it'd be my recommendation, the committee authorize the manager to put this on the agenda for award at the regular business meeting later this month.
One question, please.
Sure.
The mold that's outside of the building, is that due to just shade? It's a shady
Yes.
area, do you think?
Yes, just moisture that doesn't seem to dry up as quickly as it should or could.
Okay, thank you.
There's no leaking from the roof or anything like that that's causing the mold. It's just dampness that doesn't get enough air circulation around it to get rid of the mold.
Thank you.
So is it okay with the committee for Mr. Morris to put this on the agenda?
Yes, it's fine with me.
Yes. Yes, Dave.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Okay, this is one thing that I always need from committees, and I'm not saying I'm Ms. Martin, because this has been going on for most of the time I've been here with committees. Whenever somebody asks something like he did earlier when he said, have Mr. Corbel confirm that 21 Marion can be demolished, I need to know whether the committee says yes to that or not. I got no answer. So whenever we bring these kind of items up, the committee can recommend no action. If I would just to let it go like we ended it today, I would say the committee did not know what they wanted to do right now, and I would not talk to Mr. Corbel or have Mr. Gillen talk to Mr. Corbel. So when it comes to like a vote like this or something like that with the 21 Marion demolition, I'd like to make sure we get an answer, because otherwise I'm going to assume it's a no or it's on hold.
Do we have the money to do the demolition? I think you said 21,000 something, Steve, right?
We have a grant for 19.8.
19.8, okay. Are we just going to pause, or are we going to use it?
I say we should go forward with it.
I agree. I mean, it's something we have the finance to take care of, and plus it's been sitting there for a long time. So I think we should go ahead and get rid of it, because I don't know if there's any rats or mice or any type of animals running through there, because it is abandoned. It is abandoned.
Okay. So
And Mr. Morris, I'm sorry I didn't respond earlier to about the 21 Marion and Mr. Burley, would you comment as well? I say, yes, we go ahead and have Mr. Corbel talk to the new owner.
I think so as well. Yes.
Sorry about that, Mr.
That's
Burley.
okay. Again, Ms. Martin, I wasn't trying to single you out, just so you know that this is something that all chairs tend to do, and all committee members tend to do. And I don't know if you're expecting me just to assume or not. And I don't want to step on council's toes at all by assuming that I have the right to go ahead and do something like that. So I know Mr. Gillen wouldn't want to approach Mr. Corbel about that without making sure either. So Mr. Gillen can go ahead and approach Mr. Corbel, and I'll also put that vote on the agenda for the Westinghouse painting.
Yes, please. Is there
Steve,
anything
should
else?
we
that-
do a voice? I'm sorry. Excuse me, Steve, should we do a voice vote on this?
No, what usually happens is something like the, if you mean the 21 Marion, or do you mean the painting?
21 Marion.
No, 21 Marion has been out for a while, and the difference here is that council had to endorse the grant months and months ago. So we know that they endorsed originally doing it. So the only issue would be, just now going back to it. We never really ended 21 Marion because we never found any other property. So that was the one that was under approval to begin with, and really doesn't need anything else right now, Mr. Watkins.
Okay.
Steve, may I
Thank you.
ask a question?
Yes, me, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Just to be clear, so for voting, that's generally the under the council or under committee of the whole, and not for these individual committees. The individual committees make the determination of whether to move these or to continue them, correct?
Yes, and whether to move them to the business meeting or not too.
Okay, thank you.
For example, in this case, if we weren't sure about 21 Marion, I would put this on the business meeting either as a general report item, which would be approved without objection, or a formal motion. Either way, you could do it. But 21 Marion, as I mentioned, already been approved a while ago, and so it really isn't any change there.
Mr. President, you had a comment?
I just want to clarify, we are not allowed to vote on committee meetings. It's just the committee agrees to push it to full business meeting. And if it's something non-controversial like that, we go directly into the business meeting, and then it will be under Barb's report. She will have a motion to whatever approve. Sometimes, like we did with that street paving thing, especially when we want Steve Corbel's opinion, we push it to COW. So with COW, everyone is a member of that. And then we can, again, decide we want to push it to the business meeting. So every council member will get a chance to vote on that. But non-controversial things, like obvious things, we just push directly to business meeting.
I think that's what we should do, is take it to, let us all have a chance to voice our opinion on it.
Which item, Mr. Burley?
Is it 21 to remove the house? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. If you'd like, we can move that to the committee as a
Right.
whole.
No,
Yeah, that's what I'm
again,
thinking about, yes.
Okay, it doesn't need to be moved to anything because council had already approved this once before. It's the same property that council approved when we initially did the grant.
Mhm.
So it was never changed. There was never a vote to change it. We looked for other places to change it because we thought someone was going to buy it, and they did buy it, but then now they're reneging on that. So, it's still the same situation. You don't need to do anything more with it. I would mention under, as an item just to mention under general report, I'll put it on there to say that we're moving ahead with that, or it will be under Dave's version of that report when I put it under the business meeting, but nothing needs approved. It's already been approved. Months and
Okay,
months
then we're
ago.
going to
Okay.
go through with Mr. Corbel looking into the new owner. Did I
Yeah.
miss anything else?
Yes, I'll contact Steve Corbel.
Okay, thank you. And then if I didn't say it, I should have that. We look forward to the proposals at the council meeting about the bird sanctuary observation deck. Okay, thank you. Okay, are you finished then?
Yes, that concludes my report unless there's any further questions.
I have one question for you, Dave.
Yes, Mayor.
What do you feed that dog? I think I got to get the same stuff for mine.
Me too.
Actually, Mayor, what I did was the dog was crying and wanted fed before my report started. So what I did was I got some peanut butter and put it in, mixed it in with the dog food.
Got it.
And what that resulted in was they're metal bowls and they were licking the bowls and chasing it around the room, causing a lot of noise to get all the peanut butter off of it. So that's what happened.
That was funny.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. All right.
Okay, then, Mr. Thielacker, can we have the foreman's report, please?
Yes, just two things. We've been working over the Senior Citizen Center, and we took 2 dump truck loads of non-usable items out and disposed of them. And and we've been helping Barb and Angelo over there. They've been helping do a bunch of stuff too. The second thing is we have a furnace up at the Westinghouse Lodge on Berkeley Avenue. There's 2 furnaces. One of them is in bad shape. We think we've corrected the problem temporarily up there, but for next winter, we're going to definitely have to have one of the furnaces replaced. The heat exchanger, the main part of it's in bad shape. That's all I really have. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, so just a question for Mr. Morris. So it appears that right now we don't have to decide anything about the furnace. You're recommending that we wait until the end of the year to look at that. Is that correct?
Yeah, this would be something I'll keep on the agenda as an outstanding item. And as we get out of this winter, hopefully with everything working through the winter, then we can start worrying about it in the summer. Now, there's a couple of sources of funds you can use for something like this that we have. I don't want to go into that all right now unless you want me to, but there are some places where we could take money, including bond issue spending, because we are going to spend some money over there anyway from that. But there's other places too. If you want to go into it, we can, or we can just bring it up when we get to that later this year. I would say by May or June, we want to probably be talking about this, right, Jim?
Yes, definitely.
So I'll keep it on the agenda as an outstanding item until then, and then when Jim thinks it's the right time, we'll approach committee about this and see how you want to proceed.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just don't want to wait until it's too late and then there isn't parts or a new furnace available. But you'll let us know, right, Mr. Thielacker?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Does that end your report?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm moving on to the committee business report, and I'm asking Cindy Sim to speak, please.
Cindy, you there?
I think she's muted.
Cindy, you're muted.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Okay, I was working for the last month. I've been working on getting estimates for replacing the floors at the Pool Lodge and the Westinghouse Lodge. I did get 3 estimates, one from Molyneux, one from Empire, and one from Bob Vresic and Company. The estimates would include at the Pool Lodge, the main area and the kitchen, the Westinghouse Lodge, the main areas, both sides of the fireplace, my office, and the back hallway. Molyneux's price came in at $52,155. What that would include is only putting down the floor, the new floor on top of the old floor, without ripping out the tile and the subfloor underneath. We would have to hire another contractor to do that. And that would probably add approximately $5,000 to $6,000 to Molyneux's estimate. Empire estimate came in at almost $69,000. But that would include them tearing out the old tiles, replacing the subfloors at the pool lodge only, not at the Westinghouse Lodge. We wouldn't need to have a subfloor put down because that's a concrete based floor.
Okay.
And then obviously laying down the new floors. So that's their price. And then Bob's estimate came in at almost $55,000, and he would put new floors on top of both of the old floors. He says that that could work. So, and all three companies would lay a dark gray laminated flooring, which I think that the dark gray would work best because both floors are heavily trafficked. So I think, and I did send Barb and Steve photos of what the floor could look like with the gardenia, it's called. And even though it looks brownish, it's actually gray. So I don't know if everybody else could see that, but of course it looks very nice. And that's all the information I have for the floors.
Mr. Morris?
Okay, I have a couple comments here. I didn't get a chance to talk to Cindy about this because I was kind of going crazy today, getting ready for some things here and a couple other things that cropped up. So what we have to do now is check, as you remember what Mr. Gilland had said about bid requirements before, we have to do now is check and see if any of these people are under the state contract because the bids are so high. These are just phone bids this was not formally advertised, correct, Cindy?
Correct.
Yeah. So you have to be careful about that because there is a limit on getting bids like this, and we're over the limit with all three of these quotes. Now, it's possible that if you split them in two for just what the pool would cost versus what the lodge would cost, that one of them would come in under. I don't know. I have to talk to Cindy further about that. Or again, if any of these companies are under the state contract for flooring, and there probably is a contract for that, I just don't know, then we could just accept these kind of bids without having to formally bid it. But I need to talk with Cindy about that before we go any further to make sure. So I would not recommend putting this on for a vote necessarily at this time until I know for sure. If we know by the 23rd, the next meeting, the business meeting that is, that we can accept one of them, then I would put it on for a motion if the committee was okay. I know that initially, probably toward the end of last year, council did want to get this work done at these two locations. But you still have to, of course, vote to accept a bid. You can't just say, okay, go ahead at a committee meeting. So I just want to make sure I caution everybody about that. We have to check. Cindy and I need to talk about this maybe tomorrow morning, Cindy, or Thursday morning if we could. That would be good to see, get information. But in the meantime, if anybody else has any questions or comments about this or any concerns, it'd be good to raise them now so we're aware of that.
I have two. Can I go first, Frank?
You, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. I'm wondering why we would put a floor over top of a floor. I thought it was best to remove the floor. And are we looking at commercial grade replacement flooring? That's my.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
But do we know
commercial grade,
why
yes.
we're putting this over top of an existing floor?
I can give you
They-
an answer to that just based on my own experience, if that helps you.
Please.
Primarily, it's to reduce expense. So, I mean, a lot of labor would be involved in removing the old floor, right? And
Yes.
quite frankly, there's also, not saying that this would necessarily be the case, but sometimes you run the risk, depending on the material that's underneath. Some of the older materials for original flooring used asbestos. And if that is the case, and Dave, maybe keep me honest on this, but sometimes the actual flooring material asbestos was in it. And if not, then sometimes the adhesive used for it back in the day was also had asbestos in it. Sometimes though, you'll hear the term, they call it like a hot floor.
Mhm.
And that's what that means. If that becomes the case, then number one, you have a whole remediation issue, which can like just skyrocket the value of it. And then secondly, it doesn't really compromise the, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't compromise the integrity of the project, right? It's because whatever we're going to purchase now, whichever of the three we go with, it's a floating floor, and by design, that's basically meant to be laid down on top of a floor. You don't really adhere it to the floor in any way, shape, or form, right? And it's meant to kind of swell and contract with like the humidity and moisture in the air at any given time. So it's really not compromising anything. And quite frankly, I think it's the least disruptive, it's the least risky, and quite frankly, it's also I mean, why pay the labor to have a floor lifted up just to, put a new subfloor and lay down the new floor on top of it that we would purchase? That's kind of my thoughts on it anyways. I don't know, David, you probably have a better opinion on it, but just that's been my experience in the past.
I'd concur with what the mayor said. He's correct that some floor tile manufactured 50 or so more years ago did contain asbestos. Usually those tile were smaller in size. It's generally these are usually 12 inches by 12 inch tiles. Usually the ones that were 8 inch by 8 inch were the ones that contained asbestos. However, it is entirely likely that the mastic, the material that adhered the tile to the floor, could possibly still contain asbestos. And if that was the case, it would be less disruptive. It's actually advisable to leave a floor like that in place rather than remediate and remove it, because removing it can cause the asbestos to become airborne, whereas encapsulating it with a new floor insulates it from the public and seals it for forever, I guess, until the building's completely renovated, and reduces potential exposure to any asbestos that might be present. So based on that, and without the knowledge of what's actually under there, I would advise that you leave the floor in place.
Well, thank you for that information. I learned a lot tonight. Okay, well then, our next step for this would be you and Steve are going to discuss this further, Cindy?
Yes.
And then we're going to report next week. We'll have something then for committee as a whole?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I hope, yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
We'll
Cindy.
do our best, Barb, I promise.
Can I ask one clarification question, Cindy? And I apologize, it just wasn't very clear. I think you said Empires was 69, and did you say 62 for Molyneux?
No, 52.
52 for Molyneux.
Yes.
Okay.
But if we're going to leave the floors down, the old floors, then I should revisit Empire's estimate, because this included lifting of the existing floors. So I should get a better estimate from them if we're going to leave the existing floors down and just putting the new floors on over the existing floors. I'd like to, like I said, revisit Empire's quote again, because that will probably come down a little bit more, closer to the other two.
Yes.
I think we should leave the floor there. I'm remodeling a house on South Side, and it's pretty old. And I found out that putting the second floor on, putting the floor over top, made it more sound and easier to soundproof walking on. So I think that we should put a second floor on top.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure because Bob's and Molyneux's are so close, Empire will probably be close too once we take away that extra thing that Empire would have done. So
Yeah, you want to compare apples to apples. You want them all the same.
yes, yep, absolutely.
If there's no more comments then, or questions, did you want to move on then to summer hires?
To the pool staff.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were going to comment on that, Cindy, remember?
Yeah, I'm still working on that, but I have to present it to the rec board next Monday, the list of pool staff. So if it's okay, I would like to then have Barb, after the rec board meeting Monday, present it at next week's meeting, if that's okay.
that's fine. Sure. Thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Yes, okay.
Okay, then I will move on to the next item, which is the inventory of borough property. And thank you, Cindy. I'm
You're welcome.
proposing, thank you, that we look into the purchase of an asset management system. An asset management system can help track and manage our physical assets from procurement to disposal. These assets can include anything from heavy machinery to office equipment. This solution can maximize operational efficiency, simplify cataloging and inventory of assets, support optimization of asset useful life, and provide critical data and evaluation tools for budgetary considerations. Since we're custodians of the borough assets, we need to know the value of the assets for insurance and replacement purposes when managing the life cycle of these assets. I've looked into some asset management systems. I will get additional information that I will provide later, probably in a few months, but I'd like you to just consider that, and we'll table it for a few more months from now. Thank you. The last thing I have is the Senior Citizen Center. And I wanted to thank you very much, Mr. Thielacker, for all the work you're doing there. It's really looking much nicer. We're making a lot of progress on cleaning it out, and there's a plan to move forward. I'd like to have spoken to Mr. Corbett about where we're going forward with this. I understand there was some information about the sale of the building, but if anyone has any other alternate uses for the building, maybe we could put this to committee of the whole for discussion. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Okay, so do you want to move that to committee? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Watkins has his hand up.
You're muted, Cecil.
Thank you for allowing me to ask this question, but does anyone know if there are plans to sell the property?
My understanding was Mr. Corbel was going to let us know what's going on with that. He was looking into some items, but I don't believe that anything's been formalized on that. Do you have anything further, Mr. Morris, on that?
Other than the fact that we did have a while ago evaluation of the property. That's not the right appraisal of the property. I think that was a few years back. And I know Mr. Erbaldinger in the prior council had suggested that we move on it as soon as we can towards sale. That had been discussed, but nothing finalized yet because we were looking to try to get everything done by the end of February. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have Mr. Corbel talk a little bit about that at committee of the whole next week, if you're okay with that.
I'd like that, yes.
Okay, I'll do that and I'll mention to him that he should be prepared to add to the discussion.
And we might have to move it to executive session. Just, you know, like selling something is usually executive session material.
Right.
So,
Well, should we talk about it first and then decide if we want to move that to executive session? Is that what you're suggesting?
but Steve would typically decide himself if he
Yeah.
prefers to
Oh,
talk about
okay.
it. Or
Yeah,
I think selling, I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, he would prefer to talk about it in the executive session, which we can do.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, thank you. That's the end
Okay.
of my report.
okay, I just need a few seconds and then we'll move to ops and policy. Just hang in with me, please.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Dave. Have a good evening.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, I'm fine to start ops and policy if you're okay.
Please, Mr. Morris, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I have several items. I guess the bulk of this stuff is me. I'll try to go through them as quick as I can. First, committee vacancies. I mentioned this to you last month. I'm not going to read through all this, but I did give you again a list of people whose terms are up. Most of them have asked to be reappointed, but we're not quite finished gathering information from them yet. And we do have 3 new people, which I've listed here on your agenda. Mr. Caldwell, who's interested in Planning Commission, and Ms. Farrell, who's interested in Environmental Advisory, and a Ms. Blackburn Cohen, who has been interested in one of 3 committees. She started with Zoning Hearing Board and was then talking about Planning Commission or Civil Service. The Civil Service is typically something the chief deals with, so I would suggest that be something not really worried about right now, something that public safety needs to discuss with the chief separately, not here at this meeting. But there are 2 other committees that she could fulfill service on, and all 3 of these people could be appointed if you're okay with them. So I attached letters or resumes or what have you that they gave me to your agenda. So if you take a look at the end of the agenda, you'll see, well, not right at the very end, but toward the end, you'll see the information from them. And what usually I do is, if the committee is okay with it, at the February 23rd meeting, you would approve the 3 new members based on the information I gave you here, and as well as any members who asked to be reappointed. As I mentioned, right now, most of them have asked to be reappointed except for what I have listed here. So does anybody have any questions about that or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Morris, on the Environmental Advisory Council, I believe that might be incorrect. There is 1 alternate that's still on the committee, and there is 1 vacancy, as far as
I think the alternate was, that's who we approved last month, wasn't it? The medal was moved from alternate to regular member.
to full member, which
Right.
left 1 alternate and 1 alternate vacancy.
Yeah, well, she's the only alternate I saw.
Right.
And then there would be your vacancy that would need to be filled.
Right, that's correct. But I'm
So
I'm
Ms.
saying
Farrell
there's-
could do that. I don't have any other alternates other than Ms. Medal, who was appointed already.
Kristen, what, Barb, help me out on her last name.
Abanye.
Yeah,
Really?
yes.
Yes, she's
Okay,
an
I'm
alternate.
gonna have to look because I don't think we have her on our list. So let me take a look at that. I can't really do it right now. You don't happen to have the spelling of her name by any chance, do you?
Yes,
We
I
can just
do.
push this out to Cal
Okay.
quickly. Yeah, we don't need to
All right.
fuss with it now.
All right, let me highlight that on my agenda and I'll look at it and we'll talk about it at Cal. Other than that, though, so if there is somebody who's an alternate, they could be moved up to regular member and then Ms. Farrell could be made an alternate, for example. But I'll put it on Cal under my report so that we can get a final answer on that. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions about that? Whoops. Sorry, I'm different things are popping up on my screen here. I don't know why. Okay, let me go on to item B. When I last year, when I realized that we were going to, of course, have several new members on council, I started thinking of all the things people need to know about. And one of the things it never occurred to me before about, but I wanted to bring up, was council policies. At various times throughout my time here on the working for the borough, there have been various policies of one kind or another that have been approved by council. So I started compiling them into a list. I'm just going to share my screen briefly. This is attached to your agenda, but this is an example of what I mean. There are a number of policies, and there really are in three categories. Ones that were formally approved by council, decided by council. For example, committee meeting rules, council meeting rules, things that Mr. Corbel right now are looking at. If you recall, in January, I gave you what I had on rules for those two committees and noted there were several areas that the Sunshine Act would conflict with now, and he's working on, he's going to update you on that. Well, those are policies that were adopted by council formally. Then there were some informal policies that were created that may have been created during a meeting under a general report that were approved without objection. They weren't actually a formal motion. And then there are manager policies, things that I tended to issue, usually with council's approval or understanding. Things like hiring or COVID, stuff like that. And I thought it'd be a good idea to summarize them all. So I started doing that, but again, this is one of those things I got bogged down in because it's one of the 20 different things I'm juggling right now. So I didn't finish, but I started putting the policies in a spreadsheet for you to see. So you can see what the content is, basically, what type of policy it is, when it was approved, if it was approved. And I figured this would be beneficial to everybody as well. So I'm going to get that out to everybody as soon as I can get it done. It may take me a few more months, but I at least wanted to give you an idea. Some of you can look on, all of you rather, can look on the borough's website because there is a section that has policies on there, but it doesn't include every single thing, including some that I consider unofficial. And I can explain that in more detail, but I don't think you really want to know that right now. So I just want to let you know I'm working on that. I'm going to get a summary for you. You can see an example of it attached to your agenda. Does anybody have any questions about that? Am I being confusing or?
No, my thought would be a couple things. One is, Mr. Corbel and I are reviewing that one document you sent out because of the changes in Sunshine Act. But some of this also may fall into the new HR group because it could involve personnel issues. So if you just want to collate this as easily as you can and give it to me, and I can, maybe do a first run through before everyone has to spend their time looking at it. Would that be?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that would be, I think that'd be better.
That's fine. I just want to make sure, especially with newer members, that they understand when they approach a borough employee, for example, and say, I'd like to get this done, that employee may tell you no because there was a policy approved at one time that said that should be the answer. No, it has to, something else that has to happen. I just want to make sure people were aware, that's all.
Absolutely, and I get that. And there's ethics issues that new people may not be aware of. But
Right.
in terms of developing a full-blown document, I think we want to be careful about that.
Right.
But hopefully next week, Mr. Corbel will be doing a run-through of basic ethics and other issues for everyone on the council.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Item C is an example of one of those policies, contribution requests. Every time I bring this up, by the way, people say, well, why don't you just make the decision? The reason I don't is because the policy approved by council in 2015 is that Forest Hills Council supports local schools and nonprofits that hold certain events. And whenever they ask for a placement of an ad of some kind, council will consider those contributions for an ad. Well, the Woodland Hills Performing Arts Group is going to put on Shrek this spring, and they're asking for an ad in their program. We have done that. This has been probably the 4th or 5th year that, maybe the 6th year that they've requested this. And I think almost every year, but maybe one, council said, go ahead and put in a $100 ad. I think the ads are a little bit more expensive now than that. I saw from as low as 30 to as much as 130. But in any case, this has to be something that council approves. If you want to put an ad for the borough, and usually we put an ad that recognizes, for example, something upcoming like Arbor Day, Community Day, or something else. If you're okay with that, then, and it only has to be approved here in committee. It doesn't have to be approved by council, although I usually put it as a general report item on the business meeting so that people know that council is doing this without any objection. So if you tell me whether you're okay with it as a committee, and if you are, we'll put an ad in.
Do the committee members have any comment?
Yeah, can we discuss the type of ad that would be going in there at some point before the ad goes in?
I mean, content?
Yeah, content.
For example, one of the ad could promote Savvy Citizen, for example.
That's where I was going.
I thought so. So, that could be where we go. That's fine. Doesn't have to be the same thing we did last year. I think last year we did something, or maybe we didn't do last year. It might have been 2 years ago. We did something about Community Day coming up. So yeah, that's fine. So I just need to know if the committee is okay with the ad. Any objection? Let me put it this way. Is there any objection? No. Okay.
I don't hear any.
No,
Can I just add one thing for the new members? Understand that when we do this, we are stating that we are supporting all local schools and NPOs. We cannot 6 months down the road find someone and say no because we don't feel like it. We have to be content neutral and we address all these things. So just be aware this is where we're going, and that's fine. There's no problem with it. Just be aware of that. Any questions? Okay, next, sir.
Okay, the next item is Savvy Citizen itself. We've enrolled in there, and Angelo has drafted a plan. I believe that was sent out to everybody, but I attached it to this agenda for your review again for getting things going. Now, I did sign us up for it, I guess, a little ahead of time, mainly because, well, there's a couple of reasons for it. I'll go into the one main reason is because people kept asking me, well, so when are you going to start it? So I was kind of getting the impression that council was thinking I was dragging my feet. This was toward the end of last year. So I went ahead and started December 1st. Also because Savvy Citizen told me there were a number of people already on them from Forest Hills that were looking at Wilkins. I guess a few other local communities that had it. So and we put some very, very basic brief content on there right now, like information about meetings, calendars. But there's way more things we can do with that. And that's why Mr. Baiocchi wanted to get something more formal down. So Angelo, I don't know if you want to take a few minutes to talk right now or not.
Yeah, if that's okay, Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, please, sir. Go ahead.
Just to give you a little update here. So I believe all the pieces are in place to begin the use and to promote Savvy Citizen. The promotional and informational items I have ready. They're ready to go for the website. An announcement is going to be appearing in the Tree City Times Spring Edition, which I believe is going to print this week. I spoke with Chief Williams, and he's prepared to announce the transition from SwiftReach to those subscribers. so as Mr. Morris mentioned, we have a policy that's been developed. And the only things that I see that are remaining are the purchase of a plugin that will synchronize the calendar that's on Savvy Citizen with our website. So we can replace the existing calendar that we have there now. And there's also another add-on for geo-targeting, which I would recommend we get. I believe that's another $4 a month for that. And the only other thing that would be pending would be for Mr. Morris to have his management team selected and constituted so everyone knows how to use the program on the back end there. And that's pretty much it. I think we're ready to go with it as soon as we can get council to approve, or if we even need to.
The only other thing I would, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Mr. Morris, go ahead, please.
The only other thing I would say is in getting certain people involved in it from our employees, I'd like to just run that past council, or at least Mr. Bioki, who's kind of been taking the lead along with Mr. Lawrence on these things, to make sure that you're okay, because obviously not everybody should be the primary or a primary contact or administrator, but we should have people, able, like, for example, Ms. Sim, to put on recreational items, and possibly the people at the pool to put on something about the pool, and people here in the office to put on information either about billing or finance or what have you. Code enforcement to be able to put on issues that people need to be aware of with that too. But there would be at different levels of use so that they not all have administrator capability. Mainly that would be myself and Chief Williams who have administrator capability, and possibly one or two members of council, depending on what you folks think.
Well, that's all spelled out in the policy that we kind of prepared, because we're trying to make sure that, it wasn't recommended that too many people have approval authority. So maybe those people, if you're talking about that, just for them to compose and then submit that for release, that would make sense. But to be able to publish it directly, I don't think it's a good idea.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if we needed something more specific. Go ahead.
Okay, just to clarify, we have written, a document has been prepared that outlines the protocols of what can go on this platform and who has access to put that information on the platform. And I'm not sure if we distributed it to everyone on council yet or not, but we do want very, very strict protocols to make sure that this cannot be abused by a political goal or anything else. And Angela, you can summarize what that document is if you'd like.
Well, I mean, I think what you just said pretty much summarizes the document. It describes who has administrator access, what the other folks can do, which would be essentially to maybe create an event or to create an announcement, which would then go to Mr. Morris for review and approval. And the chief, of course, would have access for emergency notifications. So I think that's pretty much it.
Well, the reason why
we want to be very, very careful that this platform cannot be in any way misused.
I
So
agree with
our protocol is pretty precise, and because we want to avoid any misuse of it or embarrassment to the borough. So yes, I think we'll distribute that to everyone after we get it finalized and get your support for that. But understand we are looking at that very seriously.
I agree with all that, but what I'm saying is, for example, there may be something comes up, like, for example, a problem with trash collection, and they can't get a hold of me right away, but if they could get this out in a few minutes, that would help people to know that there was some issue. The truck broke down, the weather is bad, or what have you. And if I'm away, like, for example, next week, I'm going to be going to a training with APMM out in Hershey.
No,
they don't have to wait for me.
Yeah, we've thought about that, and it'll be in the document. No problem.
Okay.
No, we're aware of that.
Okay.
All right, anything else on that?
On Savvy Citizen, I don't have anything else. I have two more items though. Is that
Okay.
it? Anybody else have any questions? Under
Doesn't sound like it.
outstanding, okay, under outstanding items, I just want to mention two things. One, the banner community designation from ALOM, you know, we were awarded that again for 2022. And last month when I mentioned that, I mentioned there are a couple things that we need to look at that we may be short on for future consideration of being a banner community. I outlined them here. I'd like you to take a look at them. I'm not going to go over them right now. And the second thing is Tree City Times, an interim report. I was supposed to put this on the agenda on for this month, and we were supposed to take a look at it and work over the next few months in looking at ways to change or improve or adjust the Tree City Times. Unfortunately, I have not had the time to do anything more with it. So what I left on here was the notes from the last committee meeting in 2021 that we had on there that was supposed to start off the discussion. I know there are other things that people want to discuss about this, and we're looking for me also to put some more information on. I just haven't had the time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So it
I
is
think
on
we're all in
there.
the same boat on that one.
Yeah, I'll keep it on here. I'll keep the banner community thing on here for everybody to be aware of for the future, and hopefully we'll be able to get further along with both of these. I don't have anything else unless anybody has a question for me.
No, I can just, for the new members, to let them know that, you know, we are looking at migrating away from the four Tree City Times things on print, and perhaps go to some other methods of communication. Last summer, we had an intern here that worked with us with some proposals, because it's time we migrate away from the Tree City Times. It's our suspicion that it's not the most effective way to communicate with the community members, and certainly there's other ways we can do it. So that's what this is all about. And we've made no decisions, although the general suspicion is that we will either eliminate or dramatically cut down the use of the Tree City Times. We put it out 4 times a year, and as you can see, it's quite expensive, and we're not convinced it's really serving its purpose anymore. So just for your FYI on that one. Sir?
If I might add, that I'm not sure we're totally going to eliminate it. I think it was primarily the print version of it, so it may still serve some useful purpose to have it electronically.
Oh yeah, it was just the notion that the four times a year print version may be moving along. Other than that, I'll just ask again, I honestly didn't move and do anything more in that memorial bench policy. It's just one of those things I need to sit down and do. But I'll ask Mr. Morris, I'll put it together. You gave me some samples and I went out on my own and found some other samples. At this point, I'll just collate them. And is that something I probably should run by Corbel?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Again, for the new members, somebody asked, I think they wanted to give money for a bench or something, and we really sort of didn't know what to do. And Mr. Morris looked around, and there are a lot of communities who have actual nice written policies. So if you want to do something to commemorate an event or a family member, you know, they just go to Mr. Morris and he says, this is what you can do for this amount of money. You can get a bench, and these are our policies. And so I was trying to collate those and present something. And if no one has objection, I think we'll just go ahead with that. I'll run it past Mr. Corbel to make sure we don't get ourselves in legal trouble.
Okay.
And with the silence, I believe I have nothing else to report on the committee. So thank you.
Okay, just a couple of seconds and we can go to public safety. And I'm fine with public safety, Mr. Baoki, if you're okay.
Okay.
The only thing, I don't really have a report for manager. I just have a reminder. This is something we've been working on and we'll continue to work on. Security cameras at various locations. I'm not going to go into any more. Most of you know already what we've done. And as things change, I'll let you know, or as we continue to add things, I'll let you know. That's all I have.
Okay. On the utility bills that are listed here, should that move to the business meeting?
No, no,
For the-
what that is.
No, we
I'm
just
sorry.
okayed them and that's it.
Okay,
These are just always delayed 1 month. That one time was decided that we should put this on here for the fire department only, so that people can keep that in front of them. And that's why it's there.
okay,
You've already approved them. I mean, this is from December.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that
I could-
likewise for the EMS report as well?
The EMS is a new report that I was just given today for last month. They give us a report every month. And I always put it on the agenda so people can see what their report is of activity.
All right. So then we're moving on to the business report. And I had 3 items that I asked to have on here. One is, the first one is to discuss the police chief's report for the business meeting. I was in discussion with the chief on the monthly police report, and we're going to highlight going forward some of the reportable items, and they'll be included in the chief's report at the business meeting. We'll also make adjustments to the report as needed. In addition, like starting next month, I'd like maybe a more detailed report, a verbal report for this committee. I know the chief noted that he's transitioning from the current reporting system to, I believe it's the county system. And I just would like to know if there's any time frame on when that might be completed. I know Chief Williams is on here. Could you comment on that?
Yes, I spoke to the CAD manager from the Allegheny County 911 Center, and I guess they're having a little issue with their person on the other end of the software, where they need to open a spot for 12 different departments. We are one of them, to get them on board with this new system. There'll be training involved with it, and this is going to take a little bit of time. He told me within the next month or so he should have a better time frame on when we could actually access that system and be trained on it. So I'm just awaiting his information to see where we are with that. But the goal here is to move to the county system, as our system's fairly old, and the company that actually runs our system is actually going to shut down here in the near future. So it really doesn't have, a future with us, and we need to move somewhere else anyways. And the county system will certainly help us to better collate our information. So I'm looking forward to moving forward with that, but I need to have their help to get there.
Okay. What about the some of the items that we discussed about breaking out for the council meeting?
Okay, I sent you a preliminary draft of that,
Right.
with several categories on there that I felt were reasonable for the public to be able to view. I know there's some things like med calls, things like that. That's a HIPAA situation. We can't possibly put those there. Some things are too personal, where you're infringing on the rights of individuals. So an overview of, let's say, higher topics like burglaries, robberies, thefts, things like that, maybe assaults, any kind of sexual assault. Those are the kind of informational pieces that people would probably like to know about, because I'm sure everybody feels like they want to know what's going on in our community and they want to feel safe. And there's no reason why they shouldn't feel safe, because we really don't have an overwhelming amount of crime here, fortunately. So again, to publicize that in a form of, whether it be here or we use Savvy to push this information out, those would be some different options for us to provide the public with that kind of information that they'd probably like to see.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, since this is in the police realm, do you agree with that? Having some more information?
I do, provided it stays within the realm of information that's beneficial for citizens, right? So where I want to kind of steer clear of is police blotter kind of stuff, where every little thing that happens in the community from that standpoint gets broadcast out there. Because I don't want it to turn into that. I hope I'm articulating myself correctly, but that's kind of my only concern with that. Outside of that, it's fine, right? So and I'll give you, for instance, if we've been noticing, like, we have this cyclical thing when the weather starts to warm up, kids start to break into cars, right? They'll just try an unlocked door. If it opens, they go in there and grab whatever change in a cup holder, and off they go to the next car. Notifications to that extent where we're like, hey, keep an eye open. It's about that time. Make sure you lock your doors, that kind of thing. Fine. But, I want to be careful about not turning it into a thing where, like, so-and-so was pulled over for DUI. That's the kind of stuff I want to stay away from, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. President? Mr. President?
I would like to, like what Frank said, like minor stuff we shouldn't report, but stuff which ends up in the media anyway, I would appreciate like a quick email to council members, have to give us a heads up. Hey, someone died on Ardmore in a traffic, like, again, without details, without violating anyone's HIPAA, just to give us a heads up before people tell us about it. Kind of makes us look a little bit uninformed if we learn from neighbors something happened in Forest Hills. Like a quick email, quick update email would be good for those kind of big ticket newsworthy items.
Actually, so I don't know if this is the appropriate time to get into this, but I would actually like to even have a tighter control. So in years past, we've always had a policy, anything like this that kind of hits media, where we may field calls from the media, that really should be directed to either myself or Marcus, right? Because what you want is a single voice on the matter, whatever that is. Does that make sense? So anything typically in the past, anything kind of police related has either gone to the chief or the mayor for comment, depending on what it is. Anything borough related, like in terms of a council decision, et cetera, typically went through the president of council. And again, that was for purposes of, for lack of a better term, just controlling the messaging and making sure that it was consistent and that there wasn't 10 versions of the information running around out there, right?
Right.
That was typically, that was always been a policy of council. And then I think what we could do then is, once that information hits us, then it's an internal email to the rest of members of council saying, hey guys, here's what happened. You should be aware. Any comments, any people from the media seeking comment, please direct it to either Marcus or myself, something along those lines. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but in those particular, it can become a runaway train unless we have some sort of a control mechanism around it.
Right. And you're describing extreme circumstances. We're really talking about your monthly kind of average run of the mill stuff.
Correct.
I just want to make sure, like, Frank, I did not mean that we as council people or me as president would want to talk to the media. I just think we should be informed.
Oh yeah.
So I agree with you. We don't want us to basically distribute the information we're getting. It's just for us to inform that we basically can say, yes, I know it's unfortunate, and if you want something, you have to talk to you or to the chief. I just want us to be informed, but not to talk to media and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
It's just, it goes to the news anyway. We should just know before it goes to the news or at the same time.
Mr. Lawrence? Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, we diverged here. We got two different, totally unrelated issues. The committee chair is requesting the chief of police give us large aggregate information that is completely anonymous, so that we can say, every month we had 2 felonies and 1 misdemeanor and 1 whatever. That's completely aggregate, absolutely in agreement with the mayor. We don't want a police blotter gossip column. We just want to know how many felons we had this month, how many this or that. And frankly, it's a valuable thing because our residents need to know that, frankly, we don't have a lot of crime here. It's pretty dang safe. And I think it'll be helpful, but it's an aggregate thing. What also came up now is a different issue. How can we be informed of some cutting edge issue that just happened that everyone needs to know, and that's something different. And I agree with everything you've all suggested. It's very good, but make sure they're two different critters.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. And then it's the third critter, us talking to media. That's a complete different topic as well.
Never talk to the media.
Yeah. Sorry, that I probably took it somewhere it didn't need to go, but
No, that's okay. And you know what? Frankly, we can't control an individual council member's decision to talk to the media. We can certainly, as a group, say, don't do that. And the best thing we should all agree on is that if something big hits the fan, we would all defer to either the mayor or the council president, and that's it. We can't force any council member to do that. We hope they'll all be grown up and do that, though.
Item B, if there's nothing else on item A, I have establishing a more uniform application of speed limits throughout the borough. The speed limits throughout the borough vary from 15 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour within borough confines. And in many areas, it doesn't seem to be uniformly applied, even on the same road. So I'm saying that, or I'm letting everyone know that this committee will work with the borough engineer to determine if the speed limits posted are appropriate and that the speed limit signs are properly placed. And we'll follow the requirements that are specified in the PA statutes Title 75, which governs speed limits and that sort of thing. So I just wanted you to know that's going to be ongoing process, and I'll have some discussions with the borough engineer. Is there any questions on that?
Nope.
Nope.
I want to say, I think it's a good idea. It was one of the chief complaints we're getting from our citizens at council meetings and so on is speeding. That's one of the major issues people are bugged by. So
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not sure that it'll stop the speeding, but it'll at least help with making the speed limits known and more uniform, if that's appropriate. And then the third is about traffic calming. I know
excuse me, Angelo, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Before we
sorry.
go on to that, I want to ask a question on that. I don't understand why we would alter the speed limits. Because I look at it like this. I mean, typically speed limits vary, but like most residential streets are either 15 miles per hour or 20 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really see, and outside of the boulevard and our portion of the Pike, I'm pretty confident there's no roads that exceed either one of those. I don't know why we'd go through the expense of raising a 15 mile an hour to a 20 mile an hour or reversing it, quite frankly, just to kind of keep the speed limits consistent. I mean,
Well-
speeding, at the end of the day, if we're trying to control speeding, in my mind, it comes down to the spot enforcement that we've traditionally been doing, where somebody brings an intersection to the attention of the chief. We kind of put it on the watch list and we have those folks kind of sit on it until, and then it's a cyclical thing where we kind of, speeding picks back up, we go back out there and kind of run it again and start to remind people to slow down. I don't know that it's worth, I don't know that the effort is worth the result. I'm not sure if, so I would just ask the question, like, why are we going through that?
Well, I would like to get to the bottom of that question as well, but I've seen some streets where the speed limit will start at, there is one, it's 25 miles an hour, changes to 20, then it goes to 15, and then on the same road, it'll go back up to 20. So there's inconsistencies on the roads themselves. And what I want to do, and I intend to go through those roads and identify which ones those are.
Mhm.
And, frankly, I personally would rather see a uniform speed limit throughout the borough, but I know that's going to vary with the street size. And there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason that is apparent to me. That's why I want to speak with the engineer, where we have rather large streets, no parking on either side, those streets are marked as 15 miles an hour. Then there's narrower streets that are 20 miles an hour. So I think we're not applying speed limits appropriately on every street. And that's why I'd like to get to the bottom of that. And I think that's the only way to do it, is to have a discussion and go through the process. So, anything else on that from anyone?
Nope.
Okay. The last thing is about revisiting some traffic calming. I know this has come up several occasions about traffic calming, and I again would like this committee to start reviewing again the various traffic calming measures that might be available, and we'll make some preliminary recommendations after we've had a chance to go through what's available. I know there are some speed feedback signs that are in the process of being replaced. I believe the chief is doing that, and that'll be a valuable tool in moving forward. I'm not sure if there's a firm date on when those devices will actually be replaced. Do you have any information?
I do not. Again, this is we're in the waiting line for things, and there's a lot of stuff that hasn't gotten where it needed to go. I can tell you that, you know, there's plenty of stuff that we've ordered that we're still waiting for, and I don't know how long we're going to be waiting for it.
So that it's a question of the devices being back ordered.
No, it's actually a question of, when we order the device, how long is it going to take to get here? And is that going to change our mind on which device we do order? That's what it really comes down to.
Okay, but so we haven't ordered anything yet?
We had an order, but it really didn't provide us what we wanted, because one of the things that we'd like to have in these systems is that stealth mode, where you don't have the light on, and it just takes all the information in. We don't always want to have the light flashing and telling you your speed. When we put it up, sometimes we'd rather gather all the information first to narrow down the time frame of when people are going the fastest. So we want that type of equipment available. And again, I think we're looking for something with better battery life, whether it be solar or, you know, a better battery system. So we have other things out there. The technology is much better than it was, let's say, 10 years ago or more when we bought the other units. So we're looking at that, and I'd like to be able to get them in a reasonable period of time, not a year later.
Right. So so can we put some time frame on when we could expect to have a
I think
final decision?
I think we have a couple possibilities now where we could actually get them, and maybe we could get them within a few months, or 2 or 3 months. I'd really like to have them before spring. That would be the prime time for this to start.
Right. Okay. So maybe we'll just continue this, at least continue to see when we can get those devices. Maybe revisit that maybe around April meeting.
I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to get these machines and we're going to be able to use them. We used the previous ones very effectively over time when we had them 10, 11 years ago. I mean, we've used them up to the last couple of years, and they've just kind of failed. So again, I think they're very well needed and well used.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
No, sir.
Questions? Okay, on to the chief's report.
I really didn't bring much tonight. I thought we were going to be talking about these other subjects. I think you had some other traffic calming things that you may wanted to mention there.
Well, I was going to talk about, we were talking about the speed signs. We were talking about potentially using, not really using speed humps, but that was another thing that always comes up about speed humps, possibly some rumble strips. But I thought we can discuss that outside of this committee, come up with some other recommendations, and then bring it back again to have.
And I know we did speak about the VASCAR lines, which again, that's a spring thing where we can paint those lines. And one of the issues with why they're not painted on the Ardmore was, again, we've been waiting for a year or two now to have this road torn apart. We weren't going to put those lines down when they were going to tear the road up,
right,
under our original assumption a year ago. So again, we're looking at it now. They're going to do it this year. So we certainly aren't going to put the manpower or the money into putting lines down when they're going to be torn up a month later. So
Right.
That's really where we are with that. The Greensburg Pike, we already put some additional lines up there in the past year. We'll probably put some more up there, and some of the residential streets could certainly use a little touch of fast car lines as well.
Yes. Thank you.
If I can
Mr.
add one thing.
Yes.
Just for the new council members, what we have encountered in my 6 years, and for everyone ever on council, is you get a lot of people. Everyone complains about speeding, as the president pointed out. At some point, there's nothing we can do. Everyone drives cars, but we do get a lot of requests for speed bumps. And Mr. Thielacker is no longer on the call, I believe, but one of the points he always makes is, you put down speed bumps, then you can't plow that street, or if you do, you're going to plow up the speed bump. So they're really not functional for a city, a borough rather, where we have to plow the streets all the time because of snow. So that's why we always tell residents we're not installing speed bumps.
Right. And I wasn't suggesting that, but it was.
Oh, no, that was just more for general information.
Right.
Because it seems like a great idea until you're like, okay, not tonight.
Right. Yeah, no, I know there's a lot of negative, the cons on the speed humps outweigh the pros. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Mr. President?
I have a comment about the rumble strips. I think it's a good idea, but we have to be, if we do it part of our road paving program, it would almost cost nothing because, we have to pave the road anyway, and adding those rumble strips in the roads we are paving would not add much cost. We did something like similar like rumble strips on Braddock Road, like for the crossing near Ardmore, we painted everything, like we painted those fake red bricks just to highlight it. Again, we did it part of the road paving program. So we should really urgently look at our list. Maybe you and the chief look at it, some of those roads which are on the list. Does it make sense? Because we have to add it to our bidding, which I think is going out soon, literally in weeks.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we will move the list. So we need to look at that list urgently.
Yeah,
I'll
that's a
just
good
point
idea.
out that red brick thing that went across Braddock, that was very, very expensive.
It was okay.
Yeah, I think that was about the three of them. I think around 10 grand.
So maybe we have to talk to Dave as well. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I thought adding those rumble strips, I thought would be pretty much not adding any extra asphalt or not much labor, but maybe I'm wrong actually. So we should talk.
Yeah,
to
I
Dave.
don't know about rumble strips. It was just an FYI on those red
Mhm.
brick things. They were cute until we found out the price.
But we should urgently talk to Dave about that. And if I don't even know what roads would be suitable for that. We should look into it quickly.
Okay, Chief Williams, is there anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Thielacker?
Yes, the only thing I have is I was talking to Chief Williams here, and we have a parking issue on Pacific Avenue, the 500 block, right off of Lenox. And what was going on is we have people that were parking on both sides of the street, and we found out that we couldn't even get our salt trucks through at the beginning of winter here. And so we put up some temporary cones with signs on it. And it's from Lenox up to, I believe that's Ivy Alley there. And I'm recommending actually more so for the fire department, so that if a fire truck's either coming up or coming down Lenox and they want to turn up onto Pacific Avenue off of Lenox, they're able to make the swing. When there's a vehicle parked on both sides there across from each other, you're not going to be able to make that swing. It's going to take you 2 or 3 turns to make the turn. We also had trouble, like I said, with our salt trucks. So I'm recommending to put a new ordinance in place, whatever the process is, and have no parking on one side in that short stretch between Lenox and the alley there.
Okay.
Let me ask this question. If there is parking there and it's a problem, do we tow those vehicles?
Well, we don't have any permanent signs, and Chief Williams will be able to answer that. I don't think you can do that yet because we don't have any permanent signs right now.
No, there's no stopping that at this point. This is something new that this has been discovered basically because there was actually a truck and trailer there for some period of time. We were able to get that removed, but this is going to be an ongoing problem as you may have noticed, the traffic on Lennox and the parking there is pretty tight. And when people decide to take a little extra on the other side and you have two vehicles parked across from each other, it's all legal up there. A lot of our hilled streets there, let's say Ogden, Windsor, and some of the other streets, some of them are only allowed to be parking on one side. So that might be something also to consider in the future, but we have to take into consideration whether or not the residents have a place to park, because not everybody has a driveway, and that makes it a little more difficult. But at least for that corner, making that swing for, let's say, the salt truck, the ambulance, or the fire department, they're a lot bigger vehicles and they need a little more space to make those turns. If you go up and take a look at that yourself, you'll see that if there were two cars parked there, you're making a tight turn with something that's as big as a fire truck or a salt truck with a big plow in the front of it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and maybe the chief can suggest to Mr. Corbel or Mr. Morris to devise a draft ordinance that the committee can look at next month.
I have a question. Is this issue only for Lennox and Pacific? Like what about Ogden, Decatur? Are those all okay?
Yeah, Frank, those right now all have parking on one side only. One side is opened up. Pacific's the only one left with parking on both sides.
So then can I just make a suggestion? Rather than get the solicitor involved, let's just adopt the same ordinance that we have for Ogden and Decatur and just kind of adopt it at the next meeting. I don't know that we need to get necessarily the solicitor involved for something that easy. I mean, I'll defer to the borough manager on that, but I don't. That's just my recommendation. Committee can do what it wants.
Mr. Morris?
I can take an ordinance we've done in the past and just delete everything that's out of there and put in Pacific. Usually all we do is it says the ordinance is usually a list about parking and no parking, and you just simply add to the list no parking on the east side, and that's an amendment that gets put in. It's not hard. Just what we need though, because we always do it, is on the 23rd, you need to have council pass a motion that authorizes the manager or whoever to draft and advertise an ordinance, etc. And then in what month is this?
February.
In March, in March, you would then approve the ordinance. So, that's how we do it. If that's what you want to do, that's not a problem. I would put that as a motion now.
And do we need signs as well? And do we need to notify the residents?
Well, signs go up after you've approved the ordinance.
Right.
Notifying the residents, that's a whole nother story. That's, the ordinance gets advertised in the paper. That's the only notification anybody gets. If you're going to do something more than that, that would involve more people to send letters or something. I don't know.
It would also create a precedent I'd be careful of.
Well, we would, if we had savvy citizen, that would be one way to notify them.
Yeah.
If I may, I think we can, Chuck, keep me honest on this. I think we could this is a public safety related matter. We might even be able to, I think we can use Swift Reach to target people on within a certain block of Pacific, say in Lennox, just to kind of advise them of that, just through a voicemail of some sort. I don't know, Chuck, I think that's accurate, correct?
No, we can't specifically. That's Savvy that can do that. Savvy can pick certain areas and just do that.
Right. I would be careful because you set a precedent about informing individuals about a new ordinance. That's not a road to go down.
I think you're only talking about a small portion of of a street. We're not talking about wiping out the whole street with no parking. I think it's just the bottom corner there. So you're probably
Yeah.
talking about, I don't know, 25 feet, maybe
Yeah.
30 feet to the alley. Is that about what it is?
Yeah, Mr. Thielacker?
Yeah, it could be just a little bit more, but yeah, you're right,
Right.
Chuck. It's just from the alley down.
Right. It's only
Lennox.
it's only a small section. We're not doing the whole street at this point. Maybe in the future, that's something to consider as well. But for right now, that's only a small section. I think that putting signs up, we've already had some cones up to try to create that knowledge that there may be a change there. So the residents probably have already noticed something going on there.
Yeah. It's up to the discretion of the police. You can give a warning.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, for a new situation like that, we could certainly give some consideration if people did park there. Again,
There's a little
once
common
there's
sense
signage and
involved
a
here.
yellow line there, people will have their knowledge that they need to know about that they really can't.
Yeah.
Speaking of yellow lines, can we also paint that area so that it's, easily identifiable? Not only do you have a sign up, but I mean, where that turn is happening is just paint that so that people know not to park in that area.
Do you mean paint the curb?
Paint the curb or paint the street, either or.
Yeah, come May, when the weather gets warm, yeah, we could paint the curb. Hopefully, we can get some traffic paint this year.
Okay.
Everything's getting a little harder to get sometimes.
Okay, does that take care of that report? Are there any other reports? Nope.
Oh, one thing to add, if I may.
Yes.
Someone brought up, Mr. Tomasic brought up last week or 2 weeks ago that there may be a non-enforcement of the overnight parking on some streets. Can we just put that on next month's agenda to address that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our report.
Happy Groundhog Day, everybody. See you next Tuesday. That's it. Good night.